Thank you for tuning in. My name is Sarah Curry, and I'm on the Global Services Security team. And today we're here at NYC Summit with part of our partner summit, and we are focusing on security partners that do amazing things to help secure our customers. And I have my co-host here today, Brian.
Hey, thank you so much. Welcome back. If you were with us on our last show, we switched chairs.
We did. I said the view's actually not very good from the middle, so.
I noticed that you're also sliding further away from me.
Yeah,
not a bad choice.
I guess I'll come on in here.
I did shower last week. It's fine. Hey, everybody. My name is Brian Mendenhall. I am the worldwide head of the Security and Identity Partner Specialist team at AWS. We do things like big security partner strategy, scale programs, a security competency, MSSP, Managed Security Service Provider competency. You tried to get me, but you didn't. And we're so excited because we're joined by...
Hey everyone, I'm Jacob Berry. I am our CISO over at JIT. I'm really happy to be here and meet you guys and spend a little bit of time with you.
Awesome. And JIT is one of our amazing cyber startups and focusing on product application security.
That's correct, yeah.
Super excited, and also a big focus on agentic AI. Jacob, can you tell me a little bit about how did JIT come to be? What's the origin story?
Sure. So JIT's been in market for about 5 years, and it's where we got to the point where we could leverage AI is probably a longer story. So let's spend a little bit of time on it.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably good for our audience of like how do companies get to where they go, right, with the current product. So we have two founders, David and Aviram. There's also some VC backers that helped bring us into the market initially a few years back. So they sat down and they looked at really the product security ecosystem, the code security ecosystem, and they saw a ton of problems. And I think a lot of them, which I'm sure this audience, it resonates with them, a lot of those problems were focused around how do developers and security interact? Like, what is that process that goes from identifying that security issue to having a developer actually get that fixed into production? And they really wanted to build content around that problem and that problem. So we built a product called an ASPM, right, an Application Security Posture Management tool. And the idea behind an ASPM is that you can take all of these code security issues from SAST scanners or SCA scanners. You may have heard these acronyms. I'm happy to explain them if you'd like. But generally, they're scanners, right? They're out there looking at the code, and they're saying, what really is the problem with this code from a security perspective? And it's great that those scanners can do that. But at the end of the day, they're throwing things over the fence to developers from those scan results, and developers don't know what to do with that often, right? Maybe it's the security training for that specific issue just never happened in the organization, or maybe it's complicated. Like this tool says, hey, this is vulnerable, and you're like, what about my code is vulnerable? Why? What would make it vulnerable? I don't understand. And ASPM is really trying to fix some of that. It's how do we take those different types of vulnerabilities and give the context to a developer when they're writing code, when they're submitting code, even in production, when that code's pushed to production. What are the real security issues and how do you fix them? How do you apply intelligence from all the other business information around those vulnerabilities? So that way they have less things to fix. It's very direct, as in, here are the top priorities, here's what you should go after right now. Out of that 10,000 vulnerabilities that we might have detected, let's focus on 3 or 4 of them, right? That's really what the ASPM side is. And I'll pause for a moment, maybe you guys have some input, and then we can go into how does AI really tie into that? Like, why would you use AI in a code security product, right?
It's super interesting to hear about the Application Security Posture Management, the ASPM. The words will come out, I promise. Just hang tight.
It's still early in the morning. You got a little while.
Where did my coffee go? But Application Security Posture Management it becomes kind of this holistic view, right? Whereas before we had these silos, we had these buckets, we had these people throwing things over the fences. I have seen that happen so many times where InfoSec back in the day would just throw something at somebody and say, you can't do that. You're being insecure.
The Department of No.
Do better. The Department of No, right? Without any context.
Right.
And then my question is, this is a long lead into a question.
We're getting there.
But now we've got like the security context of application development is, how does business context play a role in that?
This is where, and that's a really good segue, because this is where AI can come into play, and it's interesting. So I'll say, I think there's probably a lot of technical people in the audience, right, that listen to this, and many technical people still have hesitation in how can LLMs or how can generative AI be applied to business, right? How is this going to accurately predict things? How is this going to really help me in my job day to day? And it's not just something else that's being thrown at me that I don't want. And this is one of those areas. And here's a really good example. If I'm a product manager, I'm a product leader, I write a design spec. I start here, right? I'm told this is my user problem I need to solve today for my product. I'm going to write this design spec, and then I'm going to pass it over to engineering. Maybe there's this back and forth on how we're going to build this. Then they start coding. And maybe somewhere in there, security gets a look at that and writes some requirements. All of that's done in some sort of wiki, in an Atlassian Confluence type product maybe, or something similar to that. But it's written down somewhere in a way a human understands, in a way that language is structured for us to talk about how we're solving a user problem with a technical bit of features. Then you go and write code. And those two things are so disconnected, right? This written document of how am I going to solve this end user's problem, and the code that's actually doing it. One thing LLMs are really good at is understanding human written text and language. So if we can look at a code vulnerability that we have a detection, and we can process some of this information around what is the point of this product feature? Like, what is it doing? How is it deployed? And then on top of that, we can even connect to the cloud to AWS, where this code's actually being deployed, and they're building this, and they're actually in production, and say, well, this feature is meant to do this. We see the documentation here on how it's supposed to be deployed to this Lambda service maybe, or this EC2 instance, whatever it might be. It's supposed to be deployed this way, and we see these vulnerabilities. Now let's connect all those dots, and we can say to the engineer, this feature has this problem. It was written in this way. This is why it might have this problem. Here's how you can generate a code fix for it. So maybe we can even take some time off of your plate, and you can just approve that fix. So there's a lot of cool areas we can start looking at LLMs to help us understand context around why something was built the way it was, or just generally to move the ball forward in connecting disparate types of information. Like, computers don't understand English natively. And I think that's really the cool thing that we can use AI, is specifically LLM generative models, language-based generative models.
And
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, please.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say.
Hopefully it's good. Oh, wow, no pressure.
No pressure.
No, I was just going to say, Jacob, I really appreciate it because, there was the whole shift left movement, which I feel like we still have.
Oh,
but,
100%.
Yeah, I was just telling developers, hey, go implement security earlier, add it into your CI/CD pipeline, have DevSecOps,
Right.
but without any guidance. And then also that's just putting more lift and scope on developers that don't probably even have the time. And like you mentioned, probably losing some of the business context for what they're actually trying to execute. So
Correct.
I think that's a great thing of what y'all are doing for adding the agentic AI. How do you see, we talked about this in the last segment, but burnout is a huge trend among security engineers, developers, and kind of like you mentioned, the back and forth. We see commonly with customers, like you said, they'll get the spec rec, they'll write the code, they go and they're right about to ship to production, and application security comes in and says, actually, you're missing 10 different controls, please go refactor everything. And also it's probably going to take you about 10 more sprints to do this. Which just leads to a lot of exhaustion back and forth. How are you seeing the agentic AI helping with that, with Chip?
That's a great question. So I think you get to that point, like to just really drive home on what you just said there. You get to that point where maybe security didn't do the review early in the cycle. And that could be for a bunch of reasons, and I'm going to come back to this in a few minutes. But you get to that decision point, and now you have to make a go, no-go decision on releasing this into production. And typically the business is going to say, I have a customer who's paying for this, and they want to give me money for it. We're going to release it. So everyone now is angry because security says, well, now you're releasing something risky into production. Developers are angry because security is yelling at them. The business is angry because no one spent time to think about these things early in the cycle. So no one's happy. So that starts that's a foundation of burnout right there, is you're not even happy in your role. But I think the root cause of burnout in especially AppSec roles comes from the expectation of what am I going to do in this job, and then the reality of what it becomes. So I think for a lot of people, and this is myself included, and a lot of people get into technology because at the end of the day, we're kind of nerds. It's exciting. It's like exciting to figure out how something works and how to build something out of components. It's the same excitement that excites really car people who are maybe modifying engines or whatever it might be. It's that, how does this work and how do I make it do something different? And on the AppSec side, what that really manifests often is like pen testing is like the ultimate goal for a lot of AppSec people. Is like, I want to be a pen tester. I want to figure out how to break this and how to play with the system and how do I make it do something completely different. It's like that mental puzzle, that intrigue that drives application security people and security people in all types of roles. And then you go to work at a company. And you're like, great, I can't wait to do this. It's so interesting to me. It's exciting. It's fun. I'm going to have such a blast with this. And like, there's 10,000 vulnerabilities our security tool detected. If you could go through all 10,000 of those, it should take you 7 to 50 years.
Yeah.
Whenever. Yeah, so that's your job now. Have fun with that. And no one really wants to sit there and do that and click on a vulnerability and then spend 2 to 8 hours looking at that, especially in a code vulnerability. So you're going to spend 2 to 8 hours looking at that to determine if you should send it to this engineering team. That's one option. And then what ends up happening is we just send everything to engineering because no one has the time or the patience and doesn't want to be burnt out, and then engineering gets burnt out instead. There's just no good winning there. So this is where I think LLMs can really help a lot too. If we can take these disparate data sources and use it to parse some of these findings and give even just incrementally better, if you made a small percentage increase in the context and the ability to have findings that you know need engineering effort now, that helps reduce burnout because you can say, all right, I know these ones here. That LLM might have processed this, or our AI processed this, and say, go focus here right now. I can now go and do something that's actually intriguing to me. I can take all of that time I would have spent going through the next 10,000 vulnerabilities off of the plate. And I think that's where we see the potential to help people with the burnout and allow people to go do things that they're actually excited about in their career. They're excited to want to go do. And is AI going to get everything right every time? Is it a silver bullet? Of course not. Like, we still are going to have to look at things. We're still going to have to do things. But I think people look at it sometimes, look at the headlines, and have a very reactionary a reactionary look at those headlines, a reactionary take on those headlines, because it does seem like we're going to solve everything perfectly every time. But that's not the reality. We just want to give you enough tools to make your life that much better where you can do the job you want to do it. And at least that's my take on the burnout side and how we can really help with it using AI.
See, that was a great question.
Oh, well,
I'm
thanks.
so glad we did yours.
Was yours a bad question?
It was. Well,
No, I bet it's solid.
Now I'm kind of insecure about my question. But
Yeah, and I really want to hear it now.
So here's my question, and it falls along with what you're saying is that we've had this shift left for 5 years, right? Where we said, hey, applications need to be secure. We need to get more into the development piece and security there. And so it's a two-parter. The first part is, will this continue to shift left in that the generative AI tools that are developing code are also doing the security analysis at the same time? Will we get to a point where it's like you fire into an LLM your feature request, it generates the code, it analyzes the security, it gives you all the context and everything that you're looking for so that it's all kind of a one-stop shop?
Okay, so that's part one?
That's part one.
Or you want me to do part one?
Do you want to hear about part two? I'm excited about part two.
Part two. All right, let's hear part two. Then I'll answer part one, and then we'll do.
I don't know how you keep track of that. I'm impressed. I'm already impressed. And then the other part is, are we going to shift right? So like from the development piece, are we going to shift right and start to see that the application security and the security components of that are now built into the context of the security controls around the application? Maybe there's a WAF, a web application firewall. Maybe there's like a firewall sitting underneath it, between it and the data set. Is that context, is the context of the security of the application built into the security controls around it, and vice versa?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And then I have one back. Do you want a job selling JIT? Because you're kind of doing our product pitch by accident.
I love this.
And we didn't really plan. We didn't plan that at all. I don't think you and I even talked about that ahead of time.
We're
just really, it's hilarious. So let's talk about the shift left problem and what happened there really over the last few years. Security said, we're not getting things done ahead of time on development. It's getting released first. There's a vulnerability, so let's catch it earlier in the process. So now there's two ways to do that. There is what we call threat modeling. That's been around for a really long time. That's the idea of taking more of a look at how something's being built and come up with what controls should we implement, what should we do, how do we design this securely, and bake that into a written requirements side. So there's that. That's really time consuming. It takes a ton of energy to do, especially for every single feature request. So it doesn't happen. Like it doesn't at the end of the day. The second part to that is we said, let's put the controls, the detection, earlier when developers are writing code. And the reality of that became developers, you're now responsible for the security controls in the coding pipeline. And both of those have unique problems. So what we're trying to do is, on the AI side, make this kind of loop of context. We want to be actually able to do threat modeling early in the product release lifecycle. So instead of having to go to the one AppSec person that's trying to secure 200 developers worth of code or whatever it is, it's not far off of that ratio at most companies. Instead of having to go to them and say, can you design a threat model for this? And they say, yeah, I can get to it in 6 months. We're going to say, why don't you submit it to our JIT threat modeling AI? Great, it'll give you some security requirements. It'll say, when you deploy this Lambda, it has to have this type of control. Oh, it's going to connect to this DynamoDB. This is how that has to be implemented. This is how you should do that. And it's going to base it on what the security team has written, the requirements, maybe like the CIS benchmarks. So it can take that and design a threat model that the security team can then approve or just say, good to go. So the developer doesn't have to wait any longer to get those security requirements. But then to your point on the shift right, and further in this detection, we save that, and now that's context for further down the line. So you have the threat model. Now at time when the developer's code is reviewed by the tooling, it's going to do the SAS and the SCA scans and all these scan types. But it also can look and say, we said we should design it this way. Did you do it that way in the code? And how is this SAS detection relevant to this? How is this SAS SQL injection vulnerability, how is that detection relevant to the rest of the security ecosystem that we talked about? What requirement didn't you meet, maybe? So that's on the left side. On the right side, when you find something on the production side, exactly what you said about the WAF is one of the things we built our AI capabilities to be able to do. So we have like 4 categories, and I think we have a demo here that I'll queue up in a second, so and we can see it for a minute. But we have a capability to go through things like WAFs. AWS WAF is the one that we support right now out of the box, like Cloudflare, some of these others, third-party vendors, where we can connect and look at the WAF rules to determine if a vulnerability would be exploitable or prevented, and we can derank that in the product and say, you don't have to worry about this one first. It's not exploitable because the WAF's going to prevent actually against that execution of whatever vulnerability. Or this one, there's no rule in the WAF for this. You need to go and fix this now. It's in production. It's exploitable. There's a reachability path. Like, you can actually go and run the exploit. It's going to work. Go fix that today. So it's pretty cool. So I'll cue it over to our demo here, and we can get that up on screen. We can actually see it, and then we can go from there. Did I get both part 1 and part 2? Did I keep it all in my head?
I am wildly impressed.
You crushed it.
Wow, my memory's working today. It doesn't work every day. All right, so you see here on the screen on this broadcast is our AI agent. Someone's querying it and saying, what risk do I care about today? Like, why do I care about this? It's now filtering it down, saying, hey, there's 4 things. There's really 4 vulnerabilities. And this might be small text for people who are looking at this just on the side, but we have this business impact analysis, this exploitability scoring, missing controls analysis, and compliance violations. So we're actually looking at data sources for each of these for every single vulnerability. And again, like compliance violations, people write human text in law, like that's a human readable thing, and law is its own thing to try to parse as its own language. Like, how do you parse that and then tie that back to a vulnerability? That's something an LLM's really good at. So that's what you saw on the screen there was exactly what you had teed me up for accidentally.
Incredible.
Which is fantastic.
Just crushing it, both of you. Well, and I think a big part of that, again, going back to like the outcomes that you're looking for. I know, Jacob, you're really passionate about how do we elevate the CISO role. And we hear from a lot of our customers, security executives, that they feel like sometimes they're not invited to the boardroom or to the C-suite to better, understand security. Part of that is security folks show up sometimes with our acronyms saying things like, well, we patched all these common vulnerabilities and exposures, CVEs. And the business side, might just have glazed eyes. Like, okay, what does that mean? Jacob, can you tell us a little bit about how JIT helps Tenant to elevate the CISO?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is any tool that you're talking about, how do we use AI in the tool? Comes down to a conversation of how am I using my resources to achieve the business outcome that I've been assigned. It's more of like a P&L conversation when you're talking about the leadership, profit and loss for those that don't know that
It was
acronym.
close. It was,
I could put one in now. We'll see. I was joking with Gilad. He runs our partnership management. And here a few minutes ago, I was like, maybe I should just come out and put a 20 in the swear jar to start.
I love it.
no one's going to stop you if you put $20 US in that jar.
Why, does it go to your pocket at the end?
It might be broken. The jar might be broken at the end.
Yeah. So back to what I was saying on elevating the C-suite. So this conversation that security leaders are often having, like we could unpack it. I could do a whole 2 hours just on this conversation topic, but the reality is CISOs are not having a conversation that the CEO is often having, or the CTO, when we're talking about like product security and code security, which is how do I build a product which I can sell into a market? Like that's the conversation that they're caring about, and the security guys going, did I patch this thing? Did I do this thing? They're not talking about the business. They're not talking about how do I really go and help build a product into a market? How do I serve my customers? How are we managing our profits? How are we managing our operational costs? How are we managing the business? And some CISOs do this really well. This isn't everyone, right? But if you feel like you're one of those people that's having a hard time getting to that seat at the table, it's probably one of the reasons why is they're talking about one thing, and you're talking about another. And I'll make a small comment here that we don't have time to unpack, unfortunately, but part of it goes down to like security and privacy is really a cultural expectation that is somewhat at odds with the capitalist system that we use, right? And it's like that's a really tough spot for security leaders to be in. It's like you're trying to take a societal expectation and push it into a business. So there's always going to be friction there. But one of the things you can do, at least when you're looking at products and you're looking at technology, and when you're talking about this conversation, instead of saying, I want budget to buy this tech, you can say, hey, we have all these vulnerabilities, and it's hard for us to operate in the European market because there's a billion things that might affect our GDPR compliance, whatever it might be. So you're talking about the market you're operating in. Then you can say, I'm going to use these types of tooling, or you're just going to say, I need a budget to do X, Y, and Z to meet these compliance requirements. And with the generative AI side of things, I think you can get a lot more done for your dollar. And that's the conversation you can have is how far will this dollar take me when I'm spending it? And when we look at again, back to the burnout, it's the same conversation. Because they're going and they're saying, I need 50 more people if I was going to solve this problem. It's like, instead, maybe I could do this with 2 people because I have a tool that's going to elevate the 2 I already have. And you're never going to get the 50 people anyway, so you're just going to argue. And you could spend 4 years arguing. No one's going to get anywhere, right? Because it's not that conversation. So I said a lot there, and there's a lot you could unpack and talk about, but I'll throw it back over to you for a minute, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I was just thinking, that education piece is super critical, right? And when it comes to CISOs being able to describe some of these very complicated things that I don't even understand, these concepts up in order to deliver an important message. How do they do that? You mentioned like the business context as a part of that,
Sure.
but when a CISO does need to talk about like a new development security tool or whatever it might be, and that needs to incorporate into this other thing. And also we need someone that's going to come help stitch this together. How do they do that education piece effectively?
So do you mean like down across the org, or do you mean up at more of an executive level?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think let's talk down. I think we kind of talked about up for just a little bit, but talk down about. Let's talk down about that.
Yeah, talk down about that. Well, that's not the right approach.
That's not the right. It works for me.
Talking down to people about the security they need to do will not work. So again, I think part of it is how do you bring the developers to the table? In this case, like it's a switch of a topic, but more around like the Security Champions program, and how do you use the tools that you have to build security champions? Like, why does a developer want to interact with you? Like, why does someone want to? Is there people in the dev org that wants to move into security? Like, we can look at these types of things, and I think that's really the goal. And I'm being very short and succinct with that answer because I think we're right on our time mark here.
We are, and before we go, one last question, very important question.
Yeah.
On an airplane, are you an aisle seat, a middle seat, or a window seat?
Ooh.
How long's the flight?
Oh, does it make a difference?
It does.
Where did you fly from?
I drove this time, unfortunately. I had stuff to bring down to our New York office. But let's say I'm in Boston, and let's say I wanted to fly to New York. That's a window seat.
That's a window seat.
Yeah, I'm not going to have to get up to use the bathroom. I want to just pass out, get a quick nap in, do an early flight down.
What about Seattle? You're visiting Amazon headquarters.
Seattle. right in the aisle. I'm going to get up, stretch my legs. Like,
I'm aligned with that.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
strategic.
Very dependent. Exactly.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for being with us, Josh. And stick around. We will be right back.
Jacob.
Jacob.
Josh, I think's up next.
Yes, Josh is up next.
I apologize. I wear glasses and I can't see.
Where did they go?
I can't see.
Said no glasses today.
You can follow
Jake.
mine. You can,
Yeah, exactly. Hey, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
But we'll be right back. We're going to take a short break. And thank you so much for joining us on Security Live.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.